Migwide Demek.
Memories, they're very important. It can lead you to a right road or down a wrong road.
I think a survivor would naturally, as a defense, kind of take those memories and push them back into the darkness. However, Mi'kmaq culture is one of oral tradition, passed down from generation to generation. It's how we come to learn, how we come to understand, right?
So, of course, remembering the good things is important, but also remembering the difficulties. And without that memory, our family history, that wouldn't be.
We call that ancestral memory. That's important because it carries our ancestors forward with us.
Gestern nach Gisigani Dijk, Amushpa Migwide Democh, Tantet Wedgie Dijk. Dad was a survivor of the Shubenacadie Indian Residential School. He got there in late 1949, and he was there as a 3-year-old, actually. They said that he was too young for school, but he was still there.
We often saw kids being taken to the residential school, but you never thought it would ever happen to you. Then all of a sudden, they're taking you to the vehicle and you're kind of, there's a little bit of reality to this. I'm going now. A red building with a huge cross on the front of it. The entranceway, the big granite steps, and the big oak doors. Some of the trees are still there. You could hear the rustle of the wind. Hearing the train whistles in the background as they're approaching through Shubenacadie on their way to Halifax.
The only thing I remember is walking up the stairs and then taken to the office and where we got registered.
My mom bought us these dolls, ball gown, dress, in this little plastic bell-shaped case. And when we got there, those things were taken away. We thought we would get them back when we left, but we never did. I was 4.5 when I went there. Didn't know that I was staying. So I didn't get to say goodbye. That was quite traumatic for me.
Ignamub number 18.
We all had numbers. They wouldn't call us by names, they would call us by numbers, right? On one section was the girls, and then on the other side was the boys' side. But we never got to see the boys. We were separated from the time we entered there.
Yeah, there were other children there besides Mi'kmaq.
2 tribes here, Mi'kmaq and Wolastoq.
Dad said that at one point when he was there was a couple Mohawk kids that came and a couple Inuit kids from up north came as well.
Our routine was rigid. We were expected to get up around 6 o'clock in the morning, make our beds, go to the church. Church was a big thing. We had the nuns there and the priest and what they called brothers. No, we never were allowed to leave the grounds at all. It was not too much idle time, right? Of course, the kids eating whatever they're being served. Some of it wasn't fit to eat. We were all in bed by 7 or 8, probably around 7 because it was still daylight.
You didn't have very much interaction with your sisters or cousins.
When we seen each other in the hallway, we had to walk by and not say anything. And if we did, we were strapped and beaten. And that happened to my brother. On the way to church one day, we met in the hallway, and I said hi, and he said hi. He got pulled out of line and thrown up against the radiator. One of the male charges that were taking care of the boys was kicking him, telling him to get up. And I ran out of line, and I jumped on him, and I started fighting him to get him up. So we both got in trouble that time. But that's how bad it was.
Ang nui surimino na danteli ol nultik. Akal mesi was wa dudida nagamoyak.
They told you not to speak your language, or else you're going to be punished. Yeah. Whenever the parents came to the school there, the nuns would monitor your visitations, I guess I call it, and make sure you don't speak your language. And you're only allowed an hour to visit them, and then they have to leave again, right?
I remember being told that we weren't good people, and being told that our parents didn't want us. That's why we were there.
I remember crying a few nights, for my mom. And I would hear the other ones, little ones, crying too, right? You couldn't get up and console them. Because if you got out of bed, you got punished. I remember missing Mom, my dad, and my siblings. I miss the freedom, the beach. Yeah.
I think the point of, not just the Shubenacadie Indian Residential School, but residential schools all across Canada, the point was to make us white and to get rid of the reserves, to take away our language, to take away our culture and our customs, the way we did things, and assimilate us into Canadian culture.
When I was growing up, we never had powwows. We never had regalias. We never had songs. We never had dresses like this.
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission described it as cultural genocide. But the Shubenacadie survivors, they simply called it genocide.
Whether you call it cultural genocide or whatever you may call it, it was a way to exterminate us, our core, our identity, to wipe that clean.
It wasn't until 1960s that they saw fit to consider Mi'kmaq people citizens of this country.
I never tried to leave. I thought about it.
There are some, families that were arrested at the schools trying to get their kids out.
He didn't want to go back. And so he saw the bus coming and he booked it up the hill. He stayed there until it was dark. And that's how he did it.
The school had students from 1929 to 1967. We were the last students to leave. I was cleaning out the sister's locker in her room. And way in the back, I found my Bill doll. I told sister this was mine. And she said it was hers. And I said, well, you know what? You can have it. I don't want nothing from here. When they went home, some survivors felt like they were treated as outsiders or damaged.
We've been brainwashed. Some of them don't want to be known as natives, It's pretty sad, right?
Kids that came back to Eskasoni from Shobi School, they hung out with each other because the other kids would not, play with them because they spoke different. My dad, he came back and he spoke English, and he was shunned for it, right?
I think each generation dealt with it in different ways, and mine was to rebel to alcohol and drugs. Yeah.
My grandmother, and she was quite adamant about keeping our language back then, right? Nugumi still mebnin, Mukawan dasu, Dandili ilniwism. Muka islu istundet, Detta igaden, aha, nadella, that liwisidet, ilniwituk.
What makes us who we are is our language. Who we are as Ulno people is within that language. So when he came back, he started to speak the language again. Eventually, he spoke it fluently. So it didn't work. They didn't assimilate him. Mukawan da soldik dan, badabek soldik dan wajidaik, bada awan dan tijawan das badamuk, tlis wudi minu, wente do ginu. We drove by on the highway. Dad said, "Dad wajiyab, nujigina muksiyab." Just the first time ever that I have a memory of the location of the school.
They were in the process of tearing it down when it burned. The way it was burning, it was like all those evil things and all those negative things, I think, were leaving.
It was mixed emotions, right? Yeah.
But knowing how much pain and how much horror that has caused our people and my family and my dad, I was kind of happy that it didn't exist anymore.
Although you don't see the building, the hill is there, and it's just as visible in your memory as the school is. It's a horrible thing that school was put there. But couldn't be in a more wonderful site than along that Shubenacadie River. Mi'kmaq played a significant role in the making of this landscape prior to Europeans and throughout that period. And it goes back 13,500 years. It's a continuity. That whole history and experience unfolding on that river. Mi'kmaq haven't forgotten that.
Pretty soon, all our survivors will be gone. To tell that story, we need to leave those things behind for our next generations to carry.
As you do up, dan Kislipiadiek, residential school, Duiado, Sidwantito.
We had the commemoration ceremony in 2021 on the first National Day of Church of Reconciliation on September 30th. We unveiled the plaque for the Parks Canada commemoration of the site. There's Mi'kmaq and 3 orthographies and 2 in Wolastoq. And then there's, of course, English and French. So there's 3 plaques there. Tells a story about why the residential schools were built, the impacts of the residential school on our people, and about who we are.
Uladet del mui wadamek makamigo. Uladet makamigo negaw delawek me mudiak.
It's a start towards reconciliation. Canadians and all people from around the world that are coming here understand and know the true history of Canada.
I think it was pretty important for the people to know. It's part of the dark history that needs to be told.
We know our history, we know where we've come from, so we continue on.
Even though they had that dark period, many dark periods in the past, when I go up there, I reflect back on the ability of Mi'kmaq people to be so resilient through all those difficulties, right? I think it's just incredible. I think it's a beautiful story.
na makamigo da na makadotig na give me go chero no na hey 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 hey